Hi everyone, welcome to my book Nook creation, and I've started with Ollivanders, so that's what I'm going to show you today, how I created the Ollivanders shop. I purchased my book Nook on Etsy and I'll put the link in the bio, and it's basically a little street, and I decided I was going to create Ollivanders, Flourish and Blots and the Quidditch supplies store. I started with tracing paper and I traced around some of the bricks on Ollivanders, as I wanted to use polymer clay to create those bricks to give the wall a bit more of a 3D appearance. I'm using Arteza polymer clay as I think this is the best for moulding. That's just my personal preference. You could also use Fimo clay, and then I merged a few of the colours together. Burnt umber and black are the colours that I have used, and then flattened them out so that I could place the tracing paper over the top of the clay and start creating my bricks. I used a little craft knife just to cut them out into the clay. I then took a little ball of foil and I lightly pressed this onto the top of the polymer clay to give a brickwork texture. It's just a really cute tip and technique that could be used for brickwork. I then popped my bricks into the oven and I just followed the guides that are available on the Arteza box for how long I should put them in the oven. And then once they came out of the oven, I used my tracing paper bricks as a guide to glue the bricks back onto the board, onto the back of the Book Nook shop. So I used my tweezers and I just used a clear dry glue. It was a PVA shop bought one from Wilko's, I believe, and I used a paintbrush just to glue the bricks down onto the wood as well. It's just a cool technique to make those bricks look a bit more 3D on my Ollivanders shop. I then assembled some of the windows and the door frame and door just so that I could begin painting the one shop once these are all dry. Again, I used PVA clear dry glue for assembling the pieces together. I then used acrylic paint to start creating my brickwork. I used a black and really dark grey colour as well as a really dark navy colour, mixing them in to create a really darker colour for the grout of my bricks, and I painted that first. And then once I did that, I used a fine paintbrush just to go through all those pieces, and then I created the brickwork and I started using a bit of red into that original colour to create a lighter brickwork as well as a light grey to dust the bricks to give them a bit more 3D texture. I also used gold as some highlights on the door frame and the door as well. I created some window frames using a glitter transparent sticker paper, or as a clear vinyl, I guess. So I just cut those pieces out to fit the door frame. I cut two out so that I could stick them together, and then I stuck them to the back of my door using a double-sided sticky tape. It was really easy to create, and you know, it looks really nice on my door too, to give it a more magical appearance. Before placing the glass pane, I guess, to my door, I actually put some lines, some markings on the door, as there are squares on the Ollivanders door. So I actually used a smart material called sticker paper cardstock, and it's really great because it already has an adhesive backing, so it's really great for when you're doing really intricate thin pieces like this, because I could just cut off a strip of the smart paper sticker cardstock, which is by Cricut, and then I could just remove the backing, and it's already adhesive, so I could just stick it straight down. So I created those lines on my door using these and just a pair of scissors. Once they were ready, I then assembled everything and then stuck it down with double-sided tape to the back of my door. You can see I also use precision tweezers at times because this was really helpful for making sure it was accurately placed. Next, we're creating on the second story 2D1 boxes stacked high in the windows. So I traced around the window shape and then I cut out a little bit extra over that line so that I could stick it onto the back of that wall. I then created out of card some little rectangles to be the boxes, and then used sticker paper to create the labels for those boxes, because if you've seen Ollivanders, you know that there's little labels on each of the boxes telling them what is in each wand. And then I applied them onto the back of that card using my tweezers, some clear dry glue and a paintbrush to create the impression that there was lots and lots of wands up there, so that when we place the window down it gives a bit more of a 3D appearance that there is a lot going on up there. This is one of my favourite parts that I did, which was the Ollivanders sign and the Ollivanders text on top of the window. So the windows were quite thin on top and I needed to create that height so that I could put the lettering on. So I used my Cricut Maker 3 and some Basswood and created the same shape using a half circle and the size that I measured on the top of the window. I created about 6 layers for my half circle and glued them together with that clear dry PVA glue. Once I was happy, I then secured this to the top of my window to create that height and then painted it the same colour as the window, as well as painting the shop sign as well, ready for when we put the sign, the logo should I say, of Ollivanders onto the shop sign. I used gold vinyl. I'm using scraps today of this, but this is actually a smart vinyl. But I'm going to be using the gold vinyl to create the letters and the logo using my Cricut machine. And they cut out beautifully. And then I applied it using some transfer tape. I used a transfer tape piece that I've used lots of times, so it has a low tack to avoid popping, ruining the paint on the sign. And then I used my hands actually to do the Ollivanders sign, as I was worried that the paint might chip a little bit. So I just very carefully used my hands and started with the A in the centre and worked my way around to create the full Ollivanders text on top of the window. And I think these are my showstoppers for the book Nook. I then needed to create the back of the shop, so what you could see through the windows. So when you do look through, you can see lots of shelves with piled high with boxes of wands. So I created a bit of a drawing first and then painted on the wands, as well as the shelves. And there you go. I think it looks pretty perfect, and I'm going to show you now how I did all those little details in the window in the front bay. So I started with creating some boxes for wands. These are now 3D boxes, and I did 1/2 centimetre, and then the height is really up to you as how long your bay window is. I used a scoring tool to create the grooves, and then created, making sure that there was some tabs so that I could cover the ends of the box as well. And I used some label paper again just to create a little label on top of the one box too. And I made quite a few of these to place in my window. I then made some wands out of polymer clay again, so I just rolled them with my finger using some of the browns as well as the copper colour, and tried to make a little bit of a groove at the bottom for the wand handle, and then popped them in the oven and started working on the wand stand. So I used some scrap basswood and I just used a craft knife and a ruler to create it, and then painted it and assembled it together. I used PVA glue for that, as well as assembling the wands onto the wand stand. And then I placed some of the wand boxes in the front window, gluing them as I go to make sure that they stay nice and firm, and I popped a little owl in there too. I think Ollivanders looks so great with all the things that I created, so from painting to polymer clay to using my Cricut machine to help with some of the beautiful finished off details, and it's come together really well. So if you keep watching, I'm going to be doing next the Quidditch supplies store, and it's got a real different appearance, and that's what I love about the Harry Potter shops down Diagon Alley. They have a complete different personality that takes over themselves. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and I can't wait to show you my next Book Nook shop. Thank you for watching, and if you like this, subscribe.